So what would you say you do here? We're going to talk about what Chris Valaika did as the Guardians hitting coach, and if he really had any impact on the hitters by putting cover sheets on all of his TPS reports.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the show. The glasses are off. Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. Download the app today. Use the code LOCKEDONMLB to win $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game.
Does it feel good to be a gangster with your glasses off? Is that what you're saying? Is that why it's off?
Is this where I'm supposed to say like darn? Because, you know, it's a family-friendly show.
It is. I don't think you can
good
say
to be
the
a
word in the lyric.
gangster.
Definitely don't sing the lyrics to that song, and don't roll your windows up in traffic. I'm Justin Latta. I guess I'll do my intro first today. We're going to talk about, obviously, Chris Valaika being hired by the Reds, and how much does a hitting coach really do? What does he really do? How much impact can he really have? And we have some debate here. We were having a good debate over text about Chris Valaika and hitting coaches. So we'll get into that. We got some mailbag questions today, too, about plate discipline, Travis Bazzana's home. And somebody wants us to make a blockbuster trade, Jeff. We racked our brains, and we're going to give you that blockbuster trade the Guardians won't give you. So if you want, the Guardians won't do it, we're going to be nice and do it for them. We're going to be nice and do it for their fans. So you should all listen to see what we come up with. I'm sure it'll be
Blockbuster.
It'll be like it'll be a nice bankrupt trade, right? That's what Blockbuster went into, bankruptcy.
Yeah.
We will bankrupt the Guardians with this trade. No, the other team's the trade. Like Blockbuster bankrupt themselves, or Netflix. I don't know. I'm Justin Latta. I'm Jeff's co-host. I used to write about baseball at Guardians Baseball Insider before that place went not bankrupt, but yeah,
went the way of Blockbuster.
It did go the way of Blockbuster. I was the editor-in-chief when things went down, so you can't blame me for that. But I'm still writing about the Guardians minor league system at the News Herald, the Morning Journal, and next year in Cleveland, and I've been doing so since 2007.
Yeah, 2007, funnily enough, which is not a word, is when I started as well. So you and I started in the same point in time. With that, I eventually moved on to focused on the draft and prospects, wrote at Scouting 24/7 nationally, featured on the John Stashauer radio show. Is that still a thing? Let me know in the comments below. Before I came over here to Locked On, when people decided they didn't want to pay people to write about baseball anymore. And I have been here for a lot of years. I think I'm going to give people a peek behind the curtain here real quick. I think one of the best conversations I ever had in this network was I said I needed a co-host after 800 episodes. And they're like, so they tried various people. I shout out to Pat and Caleb. They just came for a little bit and we're in and out. But they're like, we might have someone for you. Have you heard of Justin Latta? Like, that's not his, whatever. I'm like, yeah, he was the first person I brought on as a guest host when I had to do video, and he's a friend. You maybe should have just asked me. I know you're asking me now, but now you're like telling me like he's your new host. I'm like, oh no, I would have recommended him if you'd given me that type of input. So that's.
I didn't get my name right. I wasn't even the first choice. Just gonna quickly whisper that, but that's okay. We're still having fun.
There was a point where I wasn't their any choice, where they were going to take the whole show away from me and give it to someone else.
And you're still here listening. So let's get into what people came for. So as you know by now, Chris Valaika is now the director of hitting for the Cincinnati Reds, as well as the major league hitting coach. So first of all,
there's part of me that feels like I should hold up like a picture and be like, put on the Sarah McLachlan sad music, like,
oh my God.
Do you remember me? Isn't that how it goes?
That was not the reaction I saw all over social media.
It was not.
You're doing a candlelight vigil over there, and other people are like dancing in the streets like they won a championship.
Listen, I had my issues at points with Chris Valaika, but at the end of the day, the expression I use way too much. Go ahead. If that's a game, there you go. But at the end of the day, it's like I trust this front office rather implicitly, and I feel like they've kind of earned that trust, and they were very high on him. And Tito is very loyal, and I know it was not easy for him to move on from Ty Van Berklo, but he apparently saw enough in his 1 year to be like, I want to work with that kid again.
Yeah, I mean, he did fire. They did have to get rid of Ty Van Berkeley to bring in Valaika here, and there was a lot of people who felt like that was being forced on him. But whether it was or wasn't, it worked out pretty well for Tito because he, like you said, apparently worked well with Valaika. And we had Andre on the show. I don't know, what was it, last year? And he had told us, like, I forget what episode it is now, but he had said, like, the hitters really liked Valaika, and a lot of people felt like he was going to be a future manager. And that's probably still the case. And I wonder if there's some of that in him going to the Reds, because he knew with Stephen Vogt here, he's never going to be the manager here. And just to be clear, like, I saw a lot of comments like this too, saying that he left for a lateral move, or Cleveland let him go or didn't want him back. They intended to bring everybody back from the coaching staff unless they got, as Zach said in his tweet after the media session, unless they got promotions. The way the Reds promoted him was they said, okay, you're going to become our major league hitting coach, but you're also going to be the director of hitting. And does anybody really know what a director of hitting does? Like 10 years ago, that title didn't really exist. Like the same.
He directs your hits.
He directs your hits. Well, he should have directed more hits for the Guardians in October.
Well, you can so easily change swing approaches, so that should.
Yes, yeah, we're going to get into that. I mean, what was it? Ruben Niebla for a little bit was the assistant pitching coach. Like, that was not a thing 10 years ago. So these titles, like Rob Cerfolio going to the Cardinals, I really like Cerfolio, and I think he's going to do great there. But, like, just based on the description of his job, what they tweeted publicly, at least the beat writers were saying, was kind of a lot of the same duties, except now he gets to be called assistant general manager. That's how these things work in baseball. Like, you give this person a promotion and title, and they do the same things with the titles there. Like,
there's probably more money too, in fairness.
Yeah, you're getting a pay raise. So this is a promotion. That's the only way he would have left. I know there's a lot of people also who are saying, oh, Carl Willis is next. The Reds are keeping Derek Johnson.
Derek Johnson's awesome as a pitching coach, by the way.
He is very good. And Carl Willis is not leaving for a lesser role in Cincinnati. And the only thing that might happen with him is he might contemplate retirement. We don't really know at this point. Like, that might be the way he goes. So I wouldn't get, fret about
maybe Albernez goes to Florida, and then Carl Willis does what most, people his age do, and he moves to Florida.
Retire to Florida, but take the same job. I don't know.
But I mean, it's the Marlins, so it might as well be retirement with as bad as they're going to be next year.
Well, I mean, hey, he can send a few of those pitchers Cleveland's way. They got a couple in their rotation, but
you're going to ruin my third segment here.
I know. So the real question about this is, a lot of people were like, oh, this is great. Valaika stinks, whatever. And, people told us that the hitters love Valaika, and a lot of people consider him a future manager. So there's a big gap between what the perception is and what the baseball reality of it is. But I always come down to this with coaches, even, and managers have a certain impact too, right? But my thing with coaches is, how much blame do they actually deserve, and how much credit should they actually get? Because it's a stupid, overused analogy, but I keep going back to it. It's like, you're not going to give, chuck roast to a chef and say, give me Wagyu steak. It can't happen. It just doesn't work. You might be able to turn into something good. And I think there's a lot of people who feel like Valaika got a lot out of the hitters here that maybe others wouldn't. It's all about the talent you work with. Are you asking guys to do things they actually can't do, but your process, your plan, your concepts are all good? Like, that's my question here, is how much does a hitting coach really impact a guy? Because I know what example you're going to bring up, and I'll leave it to you to bring that up. But at the same time, you still have to give guys with the talents to work with as well. And I saw a lot of people too who are like, oh, we should hire this guy, and we'll get into some of these guys. But it's like, some of these guys were let go by teams, whereas Chris Valaika was hired away in a promotion because he might be a future manager, possibly. So it's just a weird, I know teams make decisions for different reasons, but like, I think it's a little weird that people are excited this dude's leaving, and is it all on him? I don't know. Again, I don't know how much credit to assign or how much blame to assign. I find that very hard.
Yeah, I just, one of the things I find kind of interesting is I can't point to like, or have heard about like very specifically like guys that improved with him. One I could point to who's like kind of gone down, like Jimenez.
Quan.
How much is that and how much is Quan? But like, we've heard about it. We saw Jimenez's struggles this year. And it's like when he broke out, a lot of that was it Victor Rodriguez is who he gave credit to, who's no longer in the org, who also went to the Padres, I believe, right?
He's their main hitting coach now.
Main hitting coach, yeah. So it's like, some of those guys, it's like he gave a lot of credit there. And then when he was gone, like we saw the regression. Laureano talking to Braves fans, it's like by reports there, it was an easy mechanical flaw that somehow Cleveland missed. And he went on to become their best hitter in the second half. Now there was BABIP and things like that. But, there's also just the point of some of the younger guys who left who also had BABIP issues who then regressed this year. It's hard to say. The one thing I'll say is like, okay, if we give credit for Quan, outside of him, we really haven't seen too many guys level up. We've seen, a lot of regression internally with Bo and, Jimenez and some other guys, but we have not seen anyone level up. So when you bring in an outside coach, you're hoping to see at least one or two guys level up. We saw Arias regress a year ago in 2023 against, right-handed pitching. He was like a 110, 111. I would have killed for a 110.
He was starting playoff games in 2022, Jeff.
Yeah. I mean, now he can't get out of AAA even when he destroys baseballs. But like,
well, supposedly he made an adjustment there too, which we'll talk about a little bit more.
Good enough for them to actually give him a shot at all. So I'm like, how big of an adjustment could it be? But yeah, I guess for me with Valaika, it's like, again, smarter people than I like him, and I'm going to have faith in that. My personal test, I just didn't see it. I didn't see the greatness. And yeah, part of it could just be how annoyed I got by his one terrible interview with Zach, where he just seemed to want to pass. Like he was passing the buck. He clearly didn't want to be there. It was one of the worst interviews. It was the worst interview I've ever read. Like it just made me dislike him from that. And maybe I'm not supposed to be that honest and blunt, but like he just came off really poor. And I was like, yikes. And I didn't dislike him as a person, I should say, but it just made me like, this is all yikes, to the point that we've been mocking it ever since. But then, like I said, if you have that hitting coach who's so good that another team wants to hire him away, give him a promotion, make it maybe an heir apparent as well, I'm like, well, where is the proof in the pudding? And we just haven't seen that. Now, on the other side of it, there are people who have crazy expectations who don't really understand what hitters can change and adapt. We've dealt with that all year. I know we'll probably get into that in segment 2 here in a bit, but like there are things that people think can change with hitters that just don't change. And I think the other part of it, in fairness to Valaika, is this team I've talked about before had in my opinion, a very flawed approach to hitters and got a certain type of hitter. And I understand the logic of it to a degree, but I also kind of really think that set them up to not be successful or to be incredibly streaky, which is what we've seen with the team who made the ALDS bottom 10 record, made the ALCS. Like there are certain hitter profiles that are always going to lead to, the Oscar Mercados of the world, as it were, where, like 2 months on, 1 month off, or unfortunately for them, like 3 months off, 2 weeks on.
Yeah. I would say, with Valaika being hired elsewhere, if we believe that other teams value him, if the Reds really valued him, if Teeter really valued him, I would look at that as they're looking at process over results, that they like Valaika's process and the results haven't been there. And maybe his process is good, and maybe he's gotten more results out of these guys than he should have. And the mechanical parts he's working with are flawed. Like you said, there's flawed hitters. There's a lot of flawed approaches on this team. That's the kind of hitter they've collected. They've collected a lot of very aggressive hitters. They've collected a lot of guys who don't hit for power. They're trying to turn it into power. Like, I don't know. We're going to find out this year. And the Reds didn't make a lot of contact a year ago. And that's, but the Guardians haven't had a great offense either. But again, how much of that is the guys they've given him to work with, and how much of that is him? Because there's a world where he did get the most out of him. He was, churning blood from the stone, whatever the phrase is there. And
squeezing blood from a stone.
Yeah, maybe he's squeezing blood from a stone, and you bring somebody else in, and maybe the next guy they bring in does something different and it works. And we say, okay, well, we're going to find out how good he was. I don't think you're going to find out exactly what he meant to these hitters or this team until you bring somebody else in and they do worse or the same. And you say, okay, well, because it's the same with Ty Van Berkeley, right? He was here forever. And they made the World
9
Series
years.
with Ty Van Berkeley. They made the World Series with Ty Van Berkeley as their hitting coach. And after 2016, nobody was saying, fire Ty Van Berkeley. But when those guys from the World Series team left, Lindor and Santana and Napoli and Kipnis all came out of the equation, they were like, fire Van Berkeley. Well, look at all the guys that were good that left, right? You don't have those horses to ride anymore. That's why I have a hard time assigning blame and credit to hitting coaches, because you might be able to help a hitter make a tweak or prepare for a certain pitcher, but like at the end of the day, hitter approach is still hitter approach, and your talent is still your talent. Like that's why we have issues with Noel and Oscar Gonzalez and things like that. So we'll quickly get into a little more about Valaika and the hitting coach situation. I don't want to spend the whole show on the hitting coach because, again, I just don't know how much these guys really mean. What would you say they do here? But we got mailbag questions we want to get to for sure. A lot of good ones. Travis Bazzana and Blockbuster Trades. Jeff and I both went to Blockbuster. I'd love to go to Blockbuster again. So let's have a Blockbuster on this show. Right, Jeff? Let's do it.
Sure. But first, it's time for me to talk about PrizePicks. And PrizePicks has so many things going on. They've got demons and goblins. I'm a big old nerd. Look at the wall behind me. You can see it. And I love demons and goblins. In this case, a demon is a bet that is a higher risk with a higher payout. A goblin is not as big of a payout. You know, it's classic D&D, right? Like bigger risk, bigger reward, lighter risk, lighter reward. They're often on Tuesdays, doing Taco Tuesdays, is where they amp up the odds in your favor. I mentioned last week it was Anthony Edwards, who just had to score a point in a basketball game. From what I understand, he is good at doing that. But the big thing, too, the even bigger, on top of all these deals I mentioned, is PrizePicks is right now giving you $50 instantly when you play 5. Go to the app, go to the web store, use the code LOCKDOWNMLB to get $50 instantly when you play 5. Who doesn't want some free money? Again, that's code LOCKDOWNMLB to get 50 instantly when you play 5. PrizePicks, run your game.
So let's kick the mailbag off with this. I know we have just gotten questions about this in general. Who replaces Chris Valaika? I don't know. Like there's people who want them to bring back Junior Betances, or not bring back, but hire Junior Betances.
His star has kind of dipped a little, I feel like.
Yeah, he got credit for helping Oscar Gonzalez become a major league hitter.
And a lot of other guys who then flamed out when they got to the big leagues.
Yeah, Jose Ramirez keeps picking him to be his home run derby pitcher 2 years in a row. So I don't know. There's that. Dan Puente was the guy that was hired last offseason to take over Victor Rodriguez's role. The thing people were trying to say is hire Kevin Seitzer, and this is what we got into kind of a debate about over text earlier today, was like the Braves fired Kevin Seitzer, and they're a much better offense than the Guardians' offense. So it's like, is that because of Seitzer? But why did the Braves fire him? And so you want to replace the guy that got hired away for promotion with a guy that got fired by a team that has been better offensively. So I don't know. It's a weird juxtaposition for that call to me.
I just think, you and I had this big debate. One, good coaches get fired sometimes, and that just happens. 2, guys who were in a place for a while can get tuned out. Yes, they went from the best offense in baseball to middle of the pack, but they also had an ungodly amount of injuries. Which
is not the hitting coach's fault, by the way.
No, so and one could view Matt Olson as regressing when you look at WRC plus, but if you go look at his BABIP and you look at his WRC plus by years, it's just last year might have been his career high. Now he's kind of back to where he was. There's part of me that just wonders too, like TV money is changing. Seitzer, from what I recall, is what I heard a year ago is relatively highly paid. So is Magdalena's. So Sal Fasano had a special job that was made just for him when AA came. Fasano also got fired, and they said they're not replacing that position. So the Braves are a team that have a specialty contract, or no, they're owned. Like we know they're
publicly owned.
So the people who own them. So I do wonder too if like some of this is like they're not going to fire a coach just because of money, but I could also totally see Kevin Seitzer being the type of dude where they're like, we're going to let Magdalenas go. We're going to let a few other coaches go. And he's like, no, like, I'm not going to, I've made enough. And Kevin Seitzer, the other elephant in the room that makes this feel extra dirty is his wife was fighting cancer this summer. It was diagnosed and found. So he had a lot of things on his mind. I believe she is cancer free now. I could be wrong, but they did fire a guy whose wife was so yeah, I mean, I don't know how you kind of value Seitzer's overall value. Again, it's hard to say what a good hitting coach does, how much of an impact they have. So, I mean, I would say I'm intrigued. I think the bigger story is like I don't know who's going to be a good hitting coach and who isn't, but who they hire. If they hire internally, then they're feeling pretty good about where they are. If they hire externally, then that's much like when they brought in Valaika, which is they want to spice things up, get some new thoughts and ideas in place.
And I wonder when they hired Valaika too, if there was any thought of this guy could be a future manager, and then Tito took a hiatus. I guess we can't say retired because he's not retired anymore, but he took a hiatus for a year, maybe a lot sooner than they expected. And they thought that Valaika wasn't quite ready for that role. And although Vogt had no experience either. So who really knows? All right, let's do a quick mailbag question here. Let's get one in before our second break, whatever I want to call it. Yeah, I was going to say a second intermission. So this is directly related to the Valaika thing, and this is from Miguel. How can our rookies, Rocchio, Naylor, and Noel, improve their play discipline, have greater offensive impact next season? And this is something you and I have talked a lot about. And
you can't.
Play discipline is just one of those things that is very hard to improve. Like a guy's approach is a guy's approach. You can help them with swing decisions in terms of breaking ball recognition or pitch recognition, and maybe zones and things like that. But a guy's tendency to swing, to be able to get them to be a more passive hitter or a more patient hitter, I just feel like that's a very innate part of your approach. It's very hard to change. The odd thing is, like, Rocchio took his walks this year. The one thing he actually did well was he walked, and maybe some of that was passivity. And this team could use more of it. It's like, it's for all of his flaws, like maybe it was a nice balance. The thing with Naylor, which is why it's so hard to evaluate now these days, is Naylor did walk a lot in the minors, and he did walk a significant amount in 2023 when he finally broke out after that first bad month. I don't know where the walks went with Bo Naylor. That's a strange one to me. The only thing I can think of is like major league pitchers exploited something that minor league pitchers couldn't exploit, and can he find it again? I don't know. That's a hard one to me. And the only one in this group that has a chance, I think, is Bo Naylor, because John Noel, he hit one of the best home runs in playoff history for Cleveland, and that was fun, and he had a good first month here. This is a guy who has never had very good discipline. Like Carlos Santana for a long time had some of the best plate discipline ever. It's very, Juan Soto is just the elite of the elite at this, right?
Yeah.
Travis Bazzana, we think, has similar characteristics, which is great. This is just one of those things that's like we were talking off air. Maybe you can go from like a C+ to a B- or a C- to a C, but going from a D, like John Noel is probably a D. It's hard to go from a D to a B in this area, or even D to a C.
You can't go from that. It just doesn't happen. Like, literally, here's the data. Chris Mitchell, who invented the Cato system back in the day, who works, I believe, with the Twins now. He's the guy who taught me the importance of BABIP. He is one of the greats who ever wrote back in 2014 at FanGraphs. The number of hitters who improved their percentage correct by 4 points. So just 4 points, that B to C in either direction, was 2% of major league players who were able to get that 4%. The number who improved, who were able to get that percentage correct to 5 percentage points was 0.2. It was 0.2%. That's to get there. Like, no one gets beyond. If you're lucky, it's 5. Almost nobody gets that, though. Like, that's the thing. Like, hitters. And here's the other thing too. Essentially, when you pour out the data, there's a chance for a Rocchio or a Noel to get to that 5%, or a Naylor. Like the first 3 years, sometimes we do see that variant, but it's typically 1 or 2 every single year. And but you're not getting to 6 is the thing. Like I said, almost no one gets to a 5% improvement in that. And that's just the way of it. It's a thing that data has proven time and time again. You're just so hardwired. And the other thing too, it's like we see less movement in those areas with guys who have played like year-round college or high school ball into college ball. It's like they've gotten so set into a pattern that it's what they are is what they are. So yeah, like I said, when you look at the data, a 5 percentage point improvement in that. And that's not huge, 5 percentage points. That was 8 dudes
Rare.
over a decade period.
Yeah, there's a reason. Like I know a lot of people are like, "Oh, Jenkins and Mills chase rate doesn't matter." It does matter because the data says when you're that bad, it's hard to improve. You can make maybe, like you said, small incremental improvements, but to make a leap that big is very hard to do. The only guy that has the history on his side, like we said, Rocchio walks him this year. The only guy that has that history on his side is Bo Naylor. So if someone's going to do it, it's Bo Naylor. But I don't even know how much I trust that. If I'm being honest with you.
The only guy with back during this time, it's like the list of guys who made big improvements to this. I want to read this list because most of these are people you've never heard of too. It was Andrew McCutchen. Okay, great. Michael Brantley when he was here. Fine. Diane Vesaido. You probably forgot him. Mazer is Turris, who's a backup. Trevor Plouffe. Carlos Gomez, Travis Snyder, Josh Donaldson, Mark Trumbo, Willie Harris. So there are some guys in there who are big names and a lot of guys who weren't. So it's like, it's also the guys who can make the improvement. It's hard. Like people keep acting and they act like a hitting coach.
Think of the thousands and thousands of players who did not. Like,
yes,
you're picking out that group of guys, and some of those guys were really good.
Because that's the entire list who moved 5%.
Right, and I'm sorry,
that's 4.4% is what those guys moved.
So there's thousands and thousands of players who had the same issues that the guys we're talking about right now that did not make the improvement. So you're picking out a list of guys like, oh, it has been done before. Yes, it has, but it's also not been done by the large majority of the baseball playing population. So it's difficult. That's why we always focus on
impossible
that.
Nearly.
Yeah. All right. We got to talk about Travis Bazzana. We got to talk about a blockbuster trade before we get out of here on a Friday edition of Locked On Guardians. I miss being able to bet on player props on FanDuel. I have to be honest. That was one of the things I enjoyed, at least in terms of college. You can't do it in college in Ohio anymore. Maybe anywhere. Definitely not Ohio. So you couldn't have bet that Kyle McCord was going to throw 5 interceptions on Thursday night, but maybe you feel like you can bet that Jameis Winston's going to do that on Sunday, who is the new Browns starting quarterback. If you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the page where you place your bets so you can start the season and keep the season going with the big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. If you think Jameis Winston's going to come out and do something good on Sunday for the Browns, you can bet on that. Even in the middle of the game, you can say, maybe the next drive he will throw a touchdown, and you want to bet on that. Or maybe you're like, okay, this guy's playing terrible. I'm going to bet he's going to throw an interception. You can do that on FanDuel too. And you can also get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. So if you have not been on FanDuel yet and you want to, not spend too much of your own money, which is always a good thing to do on FanDuel and things like that, put your $5 down and get $200 to play with and bet against the Browns, bet against Jameis Winston, or bet on them. If you're feeling kind of froggy, you can do all that stuff on FanDuel.com. All right, let's jump back into the mailbag here. Travis Bazzana. How many games, this comes from Aaron, how many games in 2025 Travis Bazzana plays most games at second, another infield spot, outfield, and he also threw in a question about Angel Henao. Keeps looking legit. How much does he complicate this? I mean, I would assume that next season in AA, you're looking at Angel Henao and Travis Bazzana both in that AA lineup. They both should be there
at some point
to start the year.
I don't think they'll be there to start the year. Not with the way they're moving guys slowly.
Angel Henao played. I think they're both going to be in Akron. I think they're both going to be in Akron to start the year. You can put me down on October 25th that both those guys start 2025.
I can see Henao because he repeated a level. I bet Bazzana does like a month in high A before they move him because they're just not.
Maybe that's part of the equation. Part of the equation of that is maybe where he's playing his defensive position.
Yeah,
I do think they should give him a shot in the outfield next
center field.
I know it's tricky and it might delay his progress, but you and I both pretty much believe in this guy's work ethic. That
he's got good athletic traits.
Yeah, and I just wouldn't bet against this guy in another spot. I would give it a shot, and if it doesn't work, you just go back to second base because I got to be honest, there's work to be done at second base. Yeah, well, it worked terribly for Trevor Crow.
Worked for Kipnis.
It did work for Kipnis, which is good.
In reverse.
And Kipnis also went back to the outfield, so that's fine.
Yeah.
I have no doubts about Travis Bazzana. Like I think Would he be a Gold Glove center fielder? Probably not. Would he be a Gold Glove second baseman? Also probably not. So I don't think it really matters. But this system, your center fielder
100 times more valuable than
it is, and you just don't. And also, you already locked in Andres Gimenez, and then Angel Henao is in this factor too. But we don't know what could happen literally from now.
And we know
one of these Angel Henao or Jason Chourio could be traded this offseason for all we know.
And it's not like Chourio.
That would seem to be a good thing for Cleveland because that means they're turning a prospect into a major league talent. So
and the thing is, like, okay, so Henao is also that guy, gives you more time to see Rocchio, see what you have there, I think. And then we know this team will slow play. As long as you're a 2-win player, you're guaranteed your spot. And thanks to defense metrics, Rocchio is a 2-win guy. So it gives him some time. And Chourio, like, I think the bat will play anywhere. So by the time he's up, you still, frankly, they need 2 outfielders anyway. Chourio and Bazzana with Kwan could be an outfield in a year and a half.
Here's the real question. If you're going to convert him, if you're going to consider Bazzana in the outfield next year, I think it has to be 100% committed to the outfield. You can't be doing the back and forth. Like Jake Fox, different prospect, was doing infield outfield this past year. Travis Bazzana, like, if this is the path you're going down, you got to commit to a path. Like, if he's going to play outfield, he's got to play outfield. None of this outfield 2-3 days a week and infield 2 days a week. Like, it's either center field or second base. Let him figure out the position because he needs work at second base too. He needs to improve defensively there, and I think he knows that. And obviously, you drafted him for the bat anyway, and the speed and the determination, work ethic. But if you're going to choose outfield, you got to be all in on outfield. You know what I mean? So
I still say you let him play one game a week, just kind of still get him some reps and let him focus on one. But because the one thing we know with this team is, how many times does a guy get called up and all of a sudden then they have, it's like I haven't played this position ever, and now we're going to have him play it in the big league level. Oh, I've never pitched 2 days in a row. We're going to have him do it at the big league level. I've never been a left fielder. Guess what? Big league level. Like, let's at least get Angel
Martinez.
Yeah. Like, let's start. Let's start keep some flexibility. And the other thing with him, it's like I think he's going to play a lot in the outfield. To me, these are the top 2 prospects in the system. 1, 2. I'll say that.
Is Manzardo's rookie eligibility gone? Is he out of rookie eligibility?
I'll double check that.
I mean, I would put Travis above him anyway now, but I would only consider Manzardo at number 2 with Angel. But
yeah, I mean, I kind of assumed he isn't. I'll just double check. Baseball Reference is normally
that'd be the only guy I would think would be. And really, the outfield thing for Bazzana, like, there's nobody blocking him. Like, Chourio's below him right now in terms of where he's played at level wise, and outside of Chase DeLauder, like, the only guys above him are George Valera, who's also coming into the season hurt. So, like, there's nobody ahead of Travis Bazzana where you can't try him in the outfield because nobody's blocking there's nobody in Akron next year that you're going to be like, well, that guy needs reps in center field. Like, it's Chase DeLauder and Travis Bazzana, and you're putting your top draft pick over anybody. So I'll say he'll play more outfield next year.
Still intact from Manzardo, though I feel like they don't always have that right. So
yeah, either way, I mean, Henao is at least second or third at the very worst. So all right, Jeff, we got to end the show on a strong note. Blockbuster Trades. Do you want to go first? Or you want me to?
Well, I got 2. I don't know if they count as Blockbuster. So I was talking before.
In the interest of time, let's save the second one.
Let's do the crazy one. Let's get crazy. Let's get nuts. So when you're looking at what teams need a first baseman or DH, what stood out for me, at least data wise, is Milwaukee, Texas, Pittsburgh. They're not going to trade him in the AL. Let's just be honest about that. That's just not happening. So here's my crazy trade. Pittsburgh is in a win or die situation, just about, in terms of manager, in terms of that front office. I think Charrington. And if Charrington fails there, that'll be 2 failed jobs, and he's never getting another one. So he's going to trade. Needing that first base, you trade Naylor for prospects. Like, wait, this has no prospects, but no, we're not keeping those prospects. We're going to take the ultimate gamble here.
Ooh,
we're going to take the ultimate gamble and ship those prospects and maybe some of ours to Florida, to Miami. And we're going to take the gamble on a newly healthy Sandy Alcantara, who's making $18 million back from surgery, sight unseen. Now it's $17 million or $18 million this year, next year with a $20 million option. he was not great that year before his injury. He was okay. He was not the Cy Young guy, but now we're talking about a massive injury, big money, years away from a Cy Young, and a complete rebuild. So I'm going to use those assets from the Josh Naylor trade and maybe a Janau or another piece of our own to go get Sandy Alcantara to put at the front of this rotation with Tanner, because if he comes back all the way healthy, it transforms your whole team. And Miami gets a lot of prospects this way, but they don't have to pay. It gets them monetarily out. And it also, they don't have to worry about him coming back and just being, if he poops the bed, like, then I look terrible and I'll own it. But at least I made a big trade, made a big gamble, and potentially got an ace, because you have to take a gamble if you're going to get an ace.
Yeah, I like the idea. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. You flip Naylor for the prospects, and you flip the prospects for an ace, and that's what this team definitely needs. I had 2 lined up as well, and the one kind of cheats. It includes a prospect and a major leaguer, so I guess that doesn't count.
Yeah, we both kind of cheated. Sorry, Tom.
For Tom, because it's hard to do a 1-for-1 major league trade sometimes, Thomas Wiley. So the only one I could come up with, and this probably isn't even enough, truthfully, but we'll see. The Cubs talked to Cleveland last offseason about, or in the trade deadline, supposedly about relievers, about relief help. The Cubs wanted relief help, and there were talks about Emmanuel Clase's name coming up. So the only true guys I can think traded this offseason to Blockbuster for Cleveland are Emmanuel Clase and Josh Naylor. So you did the Josh Naylor trade. I will do the Emmanuel. I had a Josh Naylor trade. I will do an Emmanuel Clase trade, even though I don't believe in it personally. Emmanuel Clase to the Cubs for Justin Steele. And I also picked up Seiya Suzuki in that deal, who's got 2 more years left. They've got some outfield prospects coming up. I debated Pete Crow Armstrong, but I felt like he wasn't enough of a sure thing for Emmanuel Clase. Seiya Suzuki's had injury issues. He hasn't played, he's got, he's missed some time the last 2 years. But the guy is hit, and he sold 16 bags last year too. So I think there's athleticism in there. Got 2 years left on that deal. Emmanuel Clase, you get Justin Steele, who is not a free agent until 2028. So you got 3 more years of him, 5, 6, 7. I know he got hurt a little bit last year too, but he's been really darn good for them. So you get a guy at the front of your rotation for a closer, granted an all-star closer, and you're getting a guy who you can play in right field or a DH who can hit the middle of your lineup. I would imagine there might be more pieces involved there, but that's about as maybe that's not. Maybe you get Seiya Suzuki and Justin Steele, who are both proven major leaguers right now.
Yeah, it's hard to put those deals together because like Clase's value is so unbelievable due to the control and everything else.
And
but it's also
the
like
contracts.
Yeah, it's like, who makes, it's also crazy to think like, yeah, a guy who would be like their second best hitter and a guy who might be their best starter would be for Cleveland for Clase. But it's we've seen closer values are ridiculous. So I don't really have and here's the thing, like I don't believe in trading Clase, but I would do that trade.
Same. Yeah, I don't either. And maybe that trade was too good to be true. So
yeah.
But hey, it's a blockbuster. I think that's that you're trading an all-star for 2 guys that also have all-star potential as well in Steele and Seiya Suzuki. All right, we're out of here on this one. But Monday we're back and we're going to do a positional review. We're going to review every position as we always do every offseason. So catcher, first base, all of it. So let us know in the comments,
Water
or
boy,
Twitter, whatever. We got to review Waterboy, the replay coordinator. We got a comment about replay coordinator.
I know.
Oddly enough, the other day. So comment below or find us on Twitter. Let us know what position you want us to review on Monday. We'll start that series on Monday.
Yeah, I'm slowly making my way through comments. If you get a random comment, that is why. But thank you all again for joining us. We appreciate that it's 1,000 strong every day, even though it's the off season. So thank you. Let's keep that going. Hope you enjoyed a fun show today. Some spirited debates, some fun ideas. Who had the better trade? Put that below. Let's keep the debate alive in the comments. Make sure you're commenting, giving it a like, all that jive. You know what to do. Again, thank you all for joining us.
Put those TPS reports on those cover sheets. Put the cover sheets on the TPS reports.
And bring us back a stapler. And go Guardians, go.